Do multinational firms exploit workers in poor nations? But like, it always feels like whenever a program gets released and it's like god tier in terms of resource management and size, it will inevitably blow it out to be as shit as the stuff it replaced. You ever notice that? When people make decisions that like you change as an agent past certain decision points.
You can't even mention Hassan's name during his ban or you'll get banned. And it's like, I'm not so stupid to think that's the case.
A gambler's fallacy is the idea that like, okay, right? So they're meliorating there, right? They're upgrading. It's meliorating. I might be slaughtering the pronunciation of this word, sorry. Look guys, big win for me. Have you ever heard of the term historiography? Thief was shot and killed by Metro PC's employee. Liberals are saying the employee should be in prison because he had no right to kill the thief. The federal minimum wage doesn't really matter anymore. Only a tiny share of civilian workers are paid at that rate. Who have previously had trouble landing a job are now finding work. Racial minorities, those with less education, and people working in the lowest paying jobs are getting bigger pay raises. Metal Gear Solid 2, especially like in the ending things, actually had like a surprising amount to say related to this kind of like, that's what it means to be like an NPC or to follow a dialogue tree. I always complain about this, but when I go on the sex subreddit, one really good example I can think of recently of this is Poppy. Trump used this at like an event or something. Just this song that criticized consumerism, the NBA bought the rights to this song and they made a remix where they used it for commercials to sell products and they edited out all the anti-consumer messages. That if we bring up something about gayness that makes people uncomfortable, the way that they make fun of that gayness is to use a meme that's that's representative of an actual gay porn actor. Like, yeah, it's very, very, very strange as well. Sure, yeah. All right, we need to get through these things. Do multinational firms exploit workers in poor nations? In The Effects of Multinational Production on Wages and Working Conditions in Developing Countries. Okay, can somebody explain to me, what is this? What am I reading right now? Is this like...
Shut up, I am talking.
Is this some guy's summary of like another research paper? Why is it posted here? Like, what is this? It's summaries of the NBER working papers. If it's a working paper, that means it's not peer reviewed yet, right? It hasn't actually been published anywhere. The National Bureau of Economic Research is like a journal, right? Why? So how do you have a working paper for a journal? What does that mean? Oh, this is the digest. The digest is a monthly publication that summarizes at least 4 recent and newsworthy NBER working papers. Professional journalists write these summaries for a non-technical audience. The Bureau sends nearly 12,000 copies of the digest each month to the readers in the government, business, university, and the media. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, gotcha, cool. All right, just checking. That multinational firms are drawn to countries with poor worker rights. Citing a 1997 survey of transnational managers, the authors explain how labor costs are actually less important than many other factors, such as market size, political stability, labor quality, and the legal environment, that global companies consider when they select a country or location for FDI, FDI meaning foreign direct investment. Labor rights that promote political stability and enhance labor quality, the authors explain, may in fact make a particular location attractive to foreign investors. Also, the authors cite analyses finding that FDI is positively correlated with the right to establish unions and the right to strike, but negatively correlated to an index of child labor. Most conclusively, they cite a 2001 study by International Labor Organization economist David Kukura, who finds that the FDI is attracted to countries with stronger civil liberties, even if labor costs are higher. The authors acknowledge that public pressure might be brought to bear on some multinational companies and their suppliers in cases of abusive labor policies in developing nations, but they caution that measures that are punitive or provide firms an incentive to alter the location of production are unwarranted and may adversely affect the very workers they intend to benefit. Interesting. Sweatshops are good, boys. We're full neoliberal. Hell yeah. That feel when my $3,000, $4,000 computer is barely running Chrome. What's going on? Oh, Chrome taking up 4 gigs of RAM. Okay, that's fair. Okay. I only have 16 gigs of RAM on this computer. Maybe that's normal. Let's see. One Google Chrome window is taking up 2 gigabytes. Restarting Chrome usually fixes that shit for me. I have, by the way, right now in Chrome, I have 3 tabs open. Maybe it's different because maybe there are reasons why Chrome has gotten more bloated. Why does it feel like, and I'm not like programming savvy, so maybe I'm missing something, but like it always feels like whenever a program gets released and it's like god tier in terms of resource management and size, it will inevitably blow it out to be as shit as the stuff it replaced. You ever notice that? Like the 2 examples I can think of are like, does anybody remember uTorrent? uTorrent was literally so fucking compact. They like emailed you like fucking 32 like fucking binary, like it was like a series of zeros and ones that you could fucking write down in 10 minutes. That's how fucking small this program was. And it was literally like, I want to say uTorrent was in the like kilobytes of size. Like, I think it was literally like a couple hundred kilobytes. It was insanely minimalistic. I might be exaggerating, but I don't think so. I think it was actually less than like one megabyte in size. It was insanely small. And now it's like a garbage. It bloated out like so fucking hard. It was insane. Firefox was first sold as a less bloated version of Mozilla. Then Chrome got popular because Firefox bloated just as bad. Yeah, Firefox used to be sick as fuck, and then it started to have a whole bunch of memory issues. But like, it was still better than Internet Explorer. But then Chrome rolled along when Firefox started to turn shit, and then Chrome was the new big boy on the block. But now Chrome is kind of like meh, like fuck. Like, unironically, like on a couple computers I've used Edge, and Edge actually seems like compelling. Like, I almost wish that I wasn't so biased right now towards Chrome, because I kind of wonder if Edge is any good. I'm not sure. I wonder why the smaller browsers never got any popular. Like, remember like Opera that always sat at like 1% market share or some shit? So there was this really interesting idea that you have like people, when people make decisions, that like you change as an agent past certain decision points. So we might choose outcomes. So we have outcome A, B, and C. Right? We might have these 3 different outcomes that we can choose. And we might think that outcome B is the best outcome, right? However, we are evaluating this at node 1 of our decision making. What we don't consider is that by the time we reach node 2, we might actually be a different actor at this point, and we're not going to choose B. We're going to go with the suboptimal A. So like, if we could order like our choices here in terms of like what would be superior, right? B is the best option, C would be the next option, and then A is like by far the worst option. So so this was given in the context of an addicted actor. So let's say, for instance, our decision here is whether or not we want to do heroin, right? So A is getting addicted to heroin. B is trying heroin one time and then no longer doing it. And then C is never doing heroin at all, right? So what we might consider here at n sub 1, at this first node, at this very first node, what we think is, okay, well, what would the best thing be? The best thing would probably be that we can inject heroin and do it one time and then have the experience and then walk away from it. So that's the action that we want, right? So what we're aiming for is outcome B. But what happens is that once we inject heroin and we try it, well, now we're a different actor in a different state, right? Now here at this node, now when we have to choose, do we want to continue with heroin A? That's not what we originally wanted here. Or do we stop doing heroin B because we've gotten the experience? Well, that now that we're a different actor at a different part of the tree, well, now we're actually going to tend towards A. So even though at this node, at n sub 1 here, even though at this node, we were aiming for B, which was our best decision, getting to try some drug or whatever without suffering the permanent bad effects, once we tried the drug and we got to this node, well, now our decision making is going to be compromised. It's different. Now we're choosing different decisions here, even though we wouldn't have wanted to at this earlier node. I thought this formalization or whatever, if there was a lot of different stuff on like decision making in that article. It was really, really, really dense, but that was really interesting, I thought. Yeah, but okay, sorry.
Did you how devastated were you by Hassan being banned for 7 days?
I mean, I'm pretty devastated, I guess. I mean, yeah.
Did you I like have no idea what the things are, but people just troll me because I don't know anything about Twitch. So they're like, you can't even mention Hassan's name during his ban or you'll get banned. And it's like, I'm not so stupid to think that's the case.
Okay, so here's how Twitch works is when a streamer is banned on Twitch, you're not allowed to platform that streamer,
from having
right?
access to
so
the best
you can't like go and
Twitch.
watch like a ton of videos of them or
Tiny.
like have them on a Discord call with you, like for them to circumvent their ban. But like I found personally that like you can usually like talk about, well, you can always talk about a person, or like if there's something very relevant, you can watch it or whatever. But just the goal is you don't want somebody like skirting their ban using and like another person's stream is basically.
Yeah. So like last week on my stream, I was watching a clip of Alex Jones interviewing. There's this guy who, his name's Carl Benjamin, really, but he goes by Sargon of Akkad.
I have had multiple real life debates with him. I hate that guy, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm shocked you've even heard of him, actually. But in any case, because Alex Jones was banned from like everything, so it's like, am I allowed to play an Alex Jones clip off of BitChute? I did it, and I guess it was fine.
Yeah, I would challenge Twitch greatly if I got banned for something like that. If like somebody like Alex Jones banned from Twitch, if I couldn't cover like a news event like that, I would take that content to another platform, and I'd be like pretty vocal about that. It would be pretty stupid, I think.
So I'm now, as you know, I've only been, because you're following my Twitch career so closely, as I'm sure.
A little
I've
bit.
been
I mean, I
now
hear a lot
on.
from all my people. I watch a lot of clips of you being a boomer and everything. But yeah, yeah.
So I'm now on like the full second month. So I lost obviously like a huge number of my Twitch Prime subs. So like, what is the strategy for getting those people to resubscribe? Just mentioning it?
Well, you have to figure that, like, for any new venture you do, there's always going to be a flurry of excitement when you originally embark on something, right?
Yeah.
So you have to take into account that, like, that thing will be really exciting. There's going to be a flurry of excitement around that, and then it'll kind of taper off. And then your goal is, like, during these big bursts of excitement is to hold on to as much of that audience as possible by showing them the content that you think is the most important that you do or the most captivating that you do, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, in terms of, like, holding on to subs, I mean, it's just a matter of, like how often do you stream? Like, streaming on a consistent schedule, streaming pretty often, like, that kind of stuff is pretty important. A simple example is a line fisherman who found a whole school of haddock but wants to keep only one for his supper. When he catches his second fish, he compares it to the first one, keeps the larger, and releases the other. Each subsequent catch is compared to the one held on the bottom of the boat. At the end of the day, the fish that he takes home will be the largest of all those caught. One result of using melioration as the real-world substitute for theoretical optimization is its implication that history matters. People view each successive choice in relation to their previous experience. It is commonly observed, for example, that people are reluctant to accept a situation that they perceive as inferior to previous situations. The psychological path dependence, an idea that where you are going depends on where you have been, is relevant to feelings about rising prices and even more so to attitudes about declining wages. Oh, I feel like there's a lot of carryover here into like sunken cost fallacy as well. Like it feels like, or even gambler's fallacy. So in sunk cost fallacy, when you've continued down a certain path for some point in time, it feels like you have to follow it to its end, even if diverging from that path and taking another one would be better to do at that particular point in time because you already have the history related to some particular path, so you don't want to diverge from it. You want to follow it through to its end. And then the gambler's fallacy. A gambler's fallacy is the idea that, like, okay, like I've done this roll on either craps or roulette, has missed, like 20 times. The next one's gotta hit. Like, it's got to. Like, statistically speaking, like, it has to. Like, if I've got a 20% chance of hitting and I've missed 10 times, then I've got to have, like, a 90% chance of, like, hitting this next one, right? It's a gambler's fallacy. It's not true. The most extreme version I've seen in real life of gambler's fallacy was when a lady sat in front of a slot machine and pulled the lever. I think she lost like $100 or some shit, but she got up and she walked away, and then somebody walked up and pulled the lever and won instantly, and she came back and attacked the lady with her purse because she thought it was her money. Does this apply to loot crates? Maybe to some extent, sure. Somebody that buys just 5 or 10 more loot crates because they feel like they're bound to hit. I say this with a word of caution. Online probability is not real probability all the time. So for an example of this, I think in League of Legends, you have a 50% chance to crit. If I hit somebody and I don't crit, my chances of critting actually increase in the game. Like I might have a 65% chance of critting the next hit. Or if I miss, if I do like 5 or 6 hits in a row, my next chance to hit, even at 50% stated crit, my actual crit chance might be like 80 or 90%. There's a much higher chance because they actually like make it so, right, it's shit like that, yeah. And it is entirely possible that for like loot crates, this type of probability is implemented as well. Hearthstone has a safety blanket that after a certain number of packs, you are guaranteed a legendary. Yeah, sure, stuff like that, sure. I thought casino machines were rigged also. Well, yeah, they're rigged to like pay back a certain amount of money, of course. It's not true probability. Like everything in a casino for like slot machines is absolutely like rigged in a certain way, yeah. Random generation in software is technically inexistent, totally relevant to what we're talking about. I'm not talking about a computer's inability to produce like random like information or truly random information. Even beyond that, what we're talking about is like we're engaging in a high level of non-randomness, like that is like chosen. Like it's not related to this at all. Do you mean that they artificially increase the percentage or that you have a bigger chance of hitting for each 50%? They artificially increase the percentage chance. Destiny, that's incorrect. There are very strict standards that slot machines must be truly random. The thing is that the house has an odds advantage overall. I'm almost positive that... Okay, let me be very clear when I say that like slot machines are rigged. I don't mean like a slot machine is rigged, like there's a guy choosing like winners and losers, but I'm almost positive that slot machines are adjusted on a day-by-day basis to pay back a theoretical amount of money. Is that not true? I'm almost positive that every single day I walked into the casino that there was like a theoretical payback number that we were handed out to, that like this is what the payback should be out today for the casino. I remember why I saw that. I'm not saying I think I do. I absolutely remember seeing this number every single day I walked into the casino. Usually back in my days, the theoretical payback was usually around like 90%, I think, in my casino, but They are just on a day-to-day basis, but they can't do lol shit where the more polls you do, the higher your chances of winning are. Well, fuck. So like my idea, what I'm guessing is that like if a slot machine's theoretical payback is like 10%, or I'm sorry, is like 95% or something, my guess is going to be that like every day it hits that number. Or like comes very, very close to hitting it. Whereas if it was like truly random at like 95%, there might be some days where it only pays out like 70%. But my guess is that that doesn't happen. I could be wrong, but that would be my guess. That's against the law. It has to be actually random in Vegas lease. What do you mean by have to be random? Like no slot machine is random. Like it can't be. It's literally like most slot machines today are like digital. Like so it's what do you mean by random, I guess? Review questions. Oh boy, are you guys ready? Okay. Under what circumstances can you imagine making poor decisions because of a lack of information? Which economic actors might affect your decision making and how? Well, sometimes we might buy certain cars because we see certain streamers driving them and they can be getting sponsored and they're influencing you that way. Wow, there's one. Good job. Number 2, is satisficing always a rational way of behaving? What about ameliorating? For example, recall the example of the fisherman who compares each fish that he catches to the one in the boat, keeping the larger one and throwing the others back into the water. What might be wrong with an attempt to perform the same exercise with choosing friends instead of fish? Have you ever heard of anyone who selected a spouse in this manner? Ooh, so satisficing can be good in some ways because realistically it's probably the only way we can make decisions. Nobody can make a truly perfect decision, so satisficing is probably fine. The ameliorating is a really bad behavior, I think, where you slowly upgrade over time because I think sometimes people fail to set like a certain bar to which they should satisfy under. So for instance, I've known people that have been in abusive relationships and they get out of one and they go to the next abusive relationship, but it's not quite as bad as the previous one, but they're like, well, hey, you know, like at least this person doesn't physically abuse me. Right? So they're ameliorating there, right? They're upgrading. It's ameliorating. I might be slaughtering the pronunciation of this word. Sorry.
Meliorate.
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 So ameliorating. Ameliorating? Fuck, can you?
Meliorate.
Ameliorating. So like ameliorating. Amelioration without the A. Oh, amelioration. Okay, ameliorating. So ameliorating, yeah, it might be bad in that case if you're slowly upgrading, but the upgrades are not like meeting like a certain threshold that you probably should be looking for. You could also argue that we might ameliorate with our climate policy as well, maybe, right? So for instance, right now we have no climate policy. Maybe we do cap and trade, but cap and trade might not be enough. Or actually, we can make this more relevant. Revolutionary socialists might argue that we are ameliorating capitalism by patching it, but those ameliorations aren't sufficient and never will be, and that's why we need a reform of the system, right? We're just making things that are incrementally better, but it's not really ever going to reach the point where it should be, like, you know, either changing the mode of production or rewarding workers in some manner or some shit, right? There you go. Okay. The community of people who are with me on YouTube Live every week pulled a major win. Independent observers saw the facts and analysis we cherish triumph over the bombast of a big or overblown online personality. We won big. Thanks, guys. Who does this? Like copy pastes like YouTube comments. You know how I can always tell when people feel like they did bad during a debate and like secretly it makes me happy? I'm going to tell you this, so I shouldn't reveal this. I shouldn't reveal this because maybe people might stop doing it because of the satisfaction it gives me. But when I see people that are scrambling on Twitter afterwards, they're like, look at how good I did in this debate. Look at all the people on YouTube that said I won. It's like, dude, you must not feel like you did too well, right? Because nobody that feels like they did well would like scramble to like fucking screenshot. Like, I'm like, I can see him like in pain. Like, I'm dragging these, I'm putting these YouTube comments together. Like, I have... Can I please hold on, like I can find oh, there's one. Destiny. I'm gonna I know. Look, guys, big win. Look, guys, big win for me. It's a big win, guys. It's a big win. I promise. Big win, guys. It's really big. Please, God, it's a big win, right? Like, that's what it feels like. But I don't know. I think it's funny. I had another history guy email me yesterday with a very interesting, not yesterday, it was 2 days ago. What was the word that he used? Have you ever heard of the term historiography? Is it historiography?
Historiography.
Oh, yeah, this is interesting. I've never actually heard this word before. But the guy emailed me and he said that he gets really triggered when people tell anybody to read history, because technically what most people are engaging in is something called historiography, right? So history might be something like Hitler, killed the Jews, but historiography would be like Hitler had a desire to eradicate the Jewish people from all of Europe, maybe even, right? That historiography is the idea of building a narrative around some set of historical facts. And that when most people say they want you to read history, what they're really saying is they want you to engage with their historiography. This is kind of like a meaningless distinction. Like, I think most people would say that immediately, like, oh yeah, well, of course we're talking about narratives. But I thought that was interesting. I never considered that point of view before. Oh yeah, Destiny, history versus historiography is a big meme in my history class. Yeah, I'd never heard of the term historiography before, and I'd never heard of history majors getting upset about counterfactuals. But I'd never. Marxist historiography, or historical materialist historiography, is a school of historiography influenced by Marxism. The chief tenets was the centrality of social class and economic experience determining historical outcomes. So, yeah, I think we know this, right? Marxist framing is the idea that every single struggle in all of history can be analyzed through the lens of class, right? As like material struggles, basically. Destiny, sorry, but that's not correct. Historiography is just the subject of investigating the history of writing things. It has nothing to do with subjectiveness. It's more or less the philosophy and development of history. Wait, what's your background? Is that true? Wait, hold on. I gotta find out what that guy emailed me. Maybe I'm misquoting him. So his email was, "Hi, Destiny. I'm a history student, and I think I can tell you something we learned early on in university that will help you with your debates against lefties or otherwise. In academia, we make a distinction that laymen don't. That is the difference between history and historiography. History is the study of events, people, ideas, or inventions, their effects, their causes, or even just the details of the thing itself. Historiography is the study of how history is remembered. For instance, the Iliad is very interesting historiographically speaking due to the prevalence of mythology within an otherwise cut and dry historical account. We have names of people who died and the gods coming down and smiting people. Another example of this is Holodomor. The facts aren't much in dispute. A man-made famine caused millions of Ukrainians, Russians, largely in the Donkoban region, and Kazakhs to starve to death. The USSR implemented policies to stop people from fleeing and murdered those who tried. Where historiography comes in is when you start making value claims about it. It was a preventable tragedy, or it showed how the USSR was evil, etc. There's nothing wrong with historiographical claims. In fact, a lot of historians write their PhDs about these kinds of issues. Christopher Columbus is an example of a figure that has drawn a lot of academic concern, mainly due to how Americans remember him. However, when that dumb Twitter squirrel tells you to read history, what they're really asking you to read is their ideologically loaded historiography. It's pretty triggering. I hope this helps when anybody baits you into historical discussions. I wonder how they would answer if challenged about why they're telling you to read history. Are they legitimately pointing out holes in your knowledge, or are they mad that you aren't conforming to their historiographical worldview? Do they want you to engage in history, or are they trying to force their own identity pull down your throat dressed up as a new academic field? Anyway, well, that was his. I'm also a history student, and the dude that emailed you is 100% on his definition. Wait, who's right? How many history students do we have in chat? Destiny, what he's saying is correct. You just misunderstood or misrepresented everything. Every history is clouded by the author who wrote it. Historiography is just the study of the different strains of history, how authors are molded by it, and the debates about which method is the best slash accurate. Okay. Destiny, I should pay attention to our shitpost. I read almost everything in chat, okay? Destiny, we need hot takes on this. Thief was shot and killed by Metro PC's employee. Liberals are saying the employee should be in prison because he had no right to kill the thief. They're saying the employee should have called the police who used mace. I stand with the employee. Who's with me? Was the first shot a headshot? I've never seen somebody drop like that from a gunshot before, unless it was a shot to the head. It looks like the first shot was like a headshot, because that dude, he just drops. They do that a lot from normal gunshots. Not normally, not from what I see. Normally, no. Hitting center mass through the spine will do that too. Yeah, but like a handgun, even like a 45, I don't think would penetrate. Or well, I guess the guy's back might have been turned. Nah, no way did he hit the spine. I feel like he had to have shot him in the head. It looks like a headshot. I watch a lot of gore videos, okay? I've seen a lot of people get shot in the head and die. This looks like a headshot to me. The first shot makes sense, the 15 after don't. I don't know. Honestly, the problem is like, if somebody walks into a store with a gun like that, I kind of feel like their life is forfeit. Like, it would take an exceptional circumstance for me to be like, you should stop shooting. Like, the guy's on the ground and it looks bad, but like the guy's still holding his gun. Like, yeah, I don't know. Self-train trains you to empty your clip on him, right? Typically, you want to empty your magazine into them until they fall, is like usually I don't know if you're like trained to shoot at someone on the ground, but I don't know. I think yeah, fuck it. I think the employee is right. Fuck it. Any trauma to the CNS will do that. If he got hit at any part of the spine, he will have that crumble response, but he definitely got hit in the upper third. Well, like, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Like if your lower spine is shattered, I don't think you crumple up like that. I could be wrong, but like usually this is when I see somebody gets like either like a big blow to the head or either shot in the head, or maybe something happens to like the back of your neck. I don't know. I don't think I've seen a video of an injury like that before, but like, when somebody like falls over and their whole body is like stuck like that, like that looks like a dead person to me. Like they got like shot in the head or like in the upper back of the neck or something. He was dead before he hit the ground. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Like it looks like when he goes on his knees and he falls over, like he's not trying to catch himself or anything. Like he looks dead. Like he looks dead by the time he's on his knees. There's like a little bit of twitching after, but I think it's just like there's like a name for it. But I don't think he's actually alive at that point, or like he might still be alive, but like he's pretty dead. There is movement though after he's on the ground. Bodies will like can twitch or move a little bit like after they've been killed. I don't know what there's a name for it or whatever, but I don't think it's rigor mortis. Rigor mortis I think is a stiffening of the muscles or something that occurs like hours and hours after death or something. Cadaveric spasm. Cadaveric spasm. Do you think he should be in trouble or no? No, I think the employee is fine. Fuck it, dude. A guy walks into a store with a fucking gun. Like, I think you're fucking emptying on that dude. Fuck that shit. The federal minimum wage doesn't really matter anymore. Only a tiny share of civilian workers are paid at that rate. The federal minimum wage is poised to become an irrelevant labor policy. Stop lagging, you fucking piece of shit, Chrome. What are you doing? Oh, you're using 4 gigs of RAM. My bad. The federal minimum wage is poised to become an irrelevant labor policy. The national pay floor of $7.25 an hour hasn't been adjusted for a decade, the longest it has ever gone unchanged. With Washington policymakers polarized on the issue, there's little chance the level will be increased soon. Meanwhile, 29 states representing about 60% of the workforce have set their minimum wages higher. Dozens of large employers, including Walmart, McDonald's, and Amazon, have pledged to pay employees well more than $7.25 an hour, while the tight labor market is causing firms of all sizes to raise pay. After a handful of high-cost cities such as Seattle and San Francisco have a level at or above $15 an hour. As a result, a tiny share of Americans, just 0.28% of the 156 million civilian workers, earned the federal minimum last year. According to the Labor Department, most of those employees were younger than 25 years old. This means the current level of the federal minimum wage appears to be having little economic impact. Okay, here is something that always bothers me, that I'm always curious about, people that write these articles. So when it says a tiny share of Americans, 0.28% of the 156 million civilian workers, earn the federal minimum wage. So that it's trying to say like almost no one gets paid the minimum wage. My experience, so when I worked at McDonald's, I think I got $5.25 an hour was the minimum wage back then. When I got the job, every year you would get like a 3 cent or like a 5 cent raise or whatever, depending on like what was going on. So like, I don't think it's fair to say like, because probably almost no one at McDonald's is getting paid a minimum wage, because if they've worked there for like at least like 3 to 6 months, you normally get like a raise of a few cents. So like, I'm really curious, like, so very few people are getting the minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. How many people are getting like $7.50 an hour or like $8 an hour? Like, I'm super curious. I'm super curious about that. Yeah, I know that turnover is high and everything too, but like, I feel like saying that, like, I'm really curious, because like, I would be more interested in like a wage bracket rather than just who's earning the de facto, the minimum wage, rather than like, oh, like the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Who's getting paid $7.50 an hour? Because if you're making $7.50 an hour, that number is probably informed by the minimum wage, right? You're probably getting paid like so like if the minimum wage was increased, it would capture, all of these people would be captured by the effects of that, right? I'm very curious about that number, but that means that the current level of the federal minimum wage appears to be having little economic impact. So that's what I'm saying. So like, this statement doesn't really logically follow this one, right? Because it could be, so what if I were to tell you the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, 0.28% of Americans make that. But then, well, what about $7.50 an hour? Oh, 25% of Americans make that. Well, now, saying that the current federal minimum wage has a little economic impact, that doesn't actually seem to be true. It seems like it's having a significant impact. A quarter of all jobs seem to be informed, or even like $8 an hour is probably someone informed by the minimum wage. But yeah, I don't know, you can't get that info, unfortunately. Yeah, sure. I just like, every time I see like minimum wage reporting like that, I'm super curious. Like, I'm not really concerned with who's getting paid minimum wage. I'm curious with whose wages are informed by the minimum wage. Because if you're getting paid like $8.75 an hour, that wage is probably pegged on the minimum wage to some extent. They're offering you like a little bit over minimum wage, right? That's my guess. That's like hypothesis. I don't know if that's true or not, but like, yeah, I'm not sure. While it may help boost pay for some individuals, it is neither costing jobs nor lifting wages for most of the country. Without action by Washington, the proportion of workers affected by the federal minimum wage is likely to keep shrinking as long as it remains at its current level, which appears probable. President Trump has no interest in raising the federal minimum wage. According to a person familiar with the current thinking of the topic, the White House says faster economic growth is the best way to produce wage increases. Hourly wage growth did accelerate last year as output rose most briskly. The Democratic-controlled House of Representatives recently voted to raise the federal minimum wage by 15 an hour by 2025, but the bill is unlikely to be considered in the Republican-controlled Senate. Even bringing the bill up to the House for a vote was no easy task. Supporters had to allow an amendment to study the effects of the law after 2 years. This is an attempt to win votes from some Democrats in the South and Midwest who pushed a rival bill that would have set a tiered minimum wage, allowing their regions to have lower pay floors. That actually sounds interesting. Representative Bobby Scott, chairman of the House Labor Committee and one of the bill's top supporters, said in July that he has no interest in considering a lower level because the cost of living continues to increase. A recent study by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office put up a significant roadblock to rallying support among moderates. It found that while an increase to 15 an hour would boost pay for 17 million workers who would otherwise earn less. These are numbers that I'm interested in. So an increase to 15 an hour would boost pay for 17 million workers. How many workers in America? 157 million workers are in the American workforce. Pay for the 17 million workers who would otherwise earn less. It would also cost 1.3 million Americans their jobs, providing talking points to advocates and opponents of the proposal. Even if Democrats win the White House control of both chambers in Congress in 2020, a minimum wage increase is no sure thing. Nearly all the Democrats running for president say they support a 15 an hour minimum. One of the few exceptions is notable. Colorado Senator Michael Bennett is exactly the type of moderate whose support would be needed for the wage increase to pass the Senate. Did he drop yet? He's the guy with the, I don't want to say with a funny face because that's kind of mean, but like, he supports a $12 an hour federal minimum wage, but he's concerned a higher rate would jeopardize jobs in lower-cost rural areas. I don't understand how you can why you would have a federal minimum wage that isn't set based on region. That's like, it's so weird to me. I just don't understand. It seems so dumb. I totally don't get it. Can you explain why tying minimum wage to inflation is a good idea? It could be. But I don't understand why you think, like, why should we have the same minimum wage for San Francisco, New York City, LA, as you would in, like, Alabama? Or like some small like rural area. The only thing I can think of is that it benefits certain states in unequal ways. For example, companies like Amazon would set up shop in the lower wage states, making higher wage states less competitive simply due to a federal decision. But that happens anyway, doesn't it? Right? Doesn't that already happen? Like a tech company that's positioned in like Iowa is probably going to pay lower wages than a tech company positioned in California or Texas or Washington. But that's not a wage floor. Well, but there is like a market negotiation for wages. We could like compare this to a wage floor. So like, for instance, if I want to set up a firm in Washington, I'm probably going to pay a higher wage than if I want to set up the exact same firm in Iowa. However, the higher wage doesn't prevent me from setting up a firm in Washington, right? So like, even if we had a regional minimum wage, like I doubt that a higher minimum wage in Washington is going to prevent a firm from setting up a business there over setting it up in Iowa, right? That would be like my guess. Do you think the culture in America where servers are paid less and earn most of their money from tips should be changed with the onus of a livable wage being supplied by the employer? When people talk about getting upset about like tipping and whatnot, like people are mad because they have to tip. It's not because the servers are getting paid like very little money. Is there like good data on this? I always got really irritated when I hear this. Like everybody talks about how servers are getting fucked because they have to rely on tips, but servers always make more money than people that work like wage jobs of equivalent things. Like Destiny, servers in Michigan literally lobbied against changing tips to standard wage. Yeah, I don't know where people get this idea. I think it's because I don't want to like pull like the whole college shit, like they've never worked real jobs before, but like servers make a good amount of money. like compared to like working at fucking fast food, waiting tables, even at like a fucking IHOP on a Friday, Saturday night, you can make like, $200, $300, like depending on how busy the night is and how big your tables are. Like that's some good ass shit. Don't be confused. Like when people talk about like hating like tips, that's because people don't like paying tips, not because servers are getting fucked. And if you're having a conversation with somebody about like tipping and they're going to point out, well, servers minimum wage is only $2.13 an hour, I promise you can safely ignore anything they have to say on the topic. They have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They read it on some bullshit Facebook thing. They have no fucking idea what the fuck they're talking about. What would you say is an equivalent job? I'd say like a job in fast food. Like, if I had to choose between working at McDonald's or Burger King or something versus working as a server at like an IHOP or a Denny's, I would always be the server. Inside the hottest job market in half a century. All sorts of people, how long is this? Who have previously had trouble landing a job are now finding work. Racial minorities, those with less education, and people working in the lowest paying jobs are getting bigger pay raises and, in many cases, experiencing the lowest unemployment rate ever recorded for their groups. They're joining manufacturing workers, women in their prime working years, Americans with disabilities, and those with criminal records, among others, and finding improved jobs prospects after years of disappointment. There are still fault lines. Jobs are still scarce for people living in rural areas of the country. Regions that rely on industries like coal mining or textiles are still struggling. The tight labor markets are at the moment may be masking some fundamental shifts in the way that we work. It will hurt the job prospects of many people later on. One face of the red-hot job market is Cassandra Eaton, 23, a high school grad who was making $8.25 an hour at a daycare center near Biloxi, Mississippi just a few months ago. Now she earns $19.80 an hour as an apprentice at a Huntington Ingalls Industries Inc. shipyard in nearby Pascagoula, where she is learning to weld warships. The unemployment rate in Mississippi, where Huntington employs 11,500 people, has been below 5% since September 2017. Prior to that month, the rate has never been below 5% of records dating back to the mid-1970s. In other parts of the country, the rate is even lower. In Iowa and New Hampshire, the December jobless rate was 2.4%, tied for the lowest in the country. So one thing that we would expect is that, like, if unemployment falls to very, very, very low numbers, that means that firms are starting to compete more highly for employees. So you would expect to see wages rise, right? Or that theoretically should happen. That's helped shift power towards job seekers and caused employers to expand their job searches and become more willing to train applicants that don't meet all qualifications. It's amazing that I'm getting paid almost $20 an hour to learn how to weld, says Miss Eaton, a single mother of young daughters. When she finishes the 2-year apprenticeship, her wage will rise to more than $27 per hour. It's no surprise to economists that many people who were previously left behind are unable to catch up. It's something policymakers have been working towards for years. Obama administration economists debated how to sustain an unemployment below 5%. Now Trump administration officials are considering how to pull those not looking for jobs back into the labor force. If you can hold unemployment at a low level for a long time, there are substantial benefits. Janet Yellen, the former chairwoman of the Federal Reserve, said in an interview, real wage growth will be faster in a tight labor market, so disadvantaged workers gain on the employment and the wage side, and to my mind, that's clearly a good thing. The only thing I think that's worrying is that is there any evidence that wages do rise, at least enough to somewhat keep up with inflation? I don't know, actually. I guess, what would you look for to back that? I mean, what I'm saying is, like, theory. It should happen. But I mean, like, empirically, I'm not sure if it's 100% played out that way. The only thing that's worrisome is, I think, based on theory, like, a low unemployment below 5.5%, I think, over, like, long periods of time is supposed to be damaging for reasons that I don't fully understand. Like, if unemployment is that low for that long and costs become too much, right, because labor is a cost for doing business, then you would expect to see capital flow away from, like, those types of things as like profit falls in these industries, right? I think, but I don't know if that plays out. I don't know how many labor markets have been, like, at the unemployment that we're at for, like, extended periods of time. I don't know if that actually happens. Oh,
closing parenthesis.
One scare could be if unemployment remains low for too long, as the cost of labor rises, it incentivizes people to more quickly move towards, like, automation and whatnot as well. And I'm willing to bet that automation... I wish I had the academic background to talk more about this. But one thing that would be worrisome is, imagine the labor markets are tight for like 5 or 10 years and people are willing to move to automation. I'm willing to bet that those upfront capital costs are like a one-time investment thing, so that if the labor market turns south again and unemployment starts to rise, even though the wages would fall for those groups, you still won't hire them because you've already made your upfront investment in capital for automated jobs. So you would those people would never regain their jobs. Although this is like an inevitability that our economy is like barreling towards anyway, regardless, right? Automation combination from overseas threatening to work manufacturing workers and medical jobs. Clerical work can be replaced by machines. The number of receptionists in America at 1 million in 2017 was 86,000 less than a decade ago. Why did they lose out from that? I don't get it. So here's kind of the idea behind like what, let's see if we can do this, behind like how a minimum wage might affect things. So let's say that each of these steps represents like this might be like, we'll say this is some high school. We'll say this is like high school graduate. We'll say this is some college. We'll say this is like college graduate, right? Let's say that these are like if we were God and we could determine like the real wages of what people should be paid. Let's say that it's something like this, right? If we were to go and we were to see like what do businesses pay like right now, maybe like what they're paying right now is like, let's say they're paying something like this, right? Okay, so like, I don't know, something like that, right? The worry is that like when you increase minimum wage, like if you set a price floor at like a certain level, that like it causes wages to increase for these groups. So like all these people now are making like more money. And for the most part, like all of these guys are benefiting, but there's going to be some group of people at the very bottom. Their labor is just not worth this minimum wage. So they just get cut completely. Nobody hires the people where they have to pay like a significant wage premium over what like they're worth. Wage premium, would that be correct there? If they have to pay like a significant wage over what this person's labor is actually worth, they just get fucked in that minimum wage increase. But all these other people end up winning out. And my understanding is that this is what this is what happened in Seattle, I think. Destiny, why? Because it's just not worth it. At some point, it's not worth it to pay somebody that much. Like, name an example of a job? I don't know. Fucking any, whatever. Retail, fast food, service level jobs, like low service level jobs. Like, it seems like your argument is against minimum wage, not what it is set at. No, my argument's not against minimum wage at all. It seems like minimum wage policies largely help. They seem like they're largely good when they're set to what natural labor things should be. But the problem is that there are some people that end up losing out on minimum wage policy. So you need to do something to ameliorate that problem. That means to like make like better. Ameliorate?
Ameliorate.
Yeah, make something better. Yeah, you need to find a way to like ameliorate these problems. How would you feel about some federal mandate for minimum wage based on local living costs? That sounds too much like trying to tie like a moral argument into like an economic like wage policy, which sounds really fucking scary. That sounds like some Venezuela tier shit. When people talk about living wages, I get very nervous that we're talking about like pricing out a fuck ton of labor. Like when you start saying everybody should get a minimum, like a living wage, and you take like a person that goes to like work at McDonald's who should be making like 17 an hour now, that sounds like all those jobs are disappearing immediately. That shit is automated instantly. Like that's like the worry that I have when people talk about like either tying wages to like a CPI or a PPP or some shit. I think the consumer pricing index is what you would tie it to, right? That's like a basket of goods. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like when we talk about like wage redistribution like that, I feel like coming out of general funds is better. So like tax policy, like earned income tax credit, which are kind of a subsidy on wages anyway. You know, I think is, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that makes me really nervous, but wouldn't following something like the MIT living wage calculator work? Well, like that's the thing, like wages aren't generally determined by like what people need to live. And I don't know if that's an effective way to determine wages, right? Like what if we go to determine wages that way and we find out that like 20% of our labor force is just priced out of the job market now. The value of their labor is too low to these companies, and either the firms become non-competitive and they can't, the profit margin has gone completely and the firms just close shop and leave, or the firms at that cost of labor are more incentivized to make the bigger upfront capital investments in automation, and they never need to hire those people again. Or they find ways to outsource the jobs because the global economy, the global markets are more competitive than what the new wage floors are in America. Really, there's like so many problems that theoretically could fall behind like a living wage. It seems better to like allow markets to set wages like competitively on their own, and then to come in from the side with things like tax policy or other forms of subsidies or assistance, financial assistance, whether that's like a universal health care, so like providing people with free medical insurance, some sort of government subsidized housing, like stuff like that seems to be a more effective way of dealing with that. It seems to be, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid actually had like Metal Gear Solid 2, especially like in the ending things, actually had like a surprising amount to say related to this kind of like to this, the idea of identity. Man, our identities are such a complicated beast. Like who you are and who you consider yourself to be, and the forces that come together to mold you into a particular thing, that pull and push you into certain directions. It's like, it's incredibly intensely interesting in my opinion to like investigate, like, why do I want, not like what do I want to become, but why do I want to become the things that I want to become, right? Like it's a deeper question, right? Like everybody wants to be successful and have a good job and make a lot of money and buy big cars and big houses and awesome shit, but why do you want that? Is it because you really want that, or is it because your friends want that, or is it because companies are telling you what they want that? Like, is it like, it's intensely interesting to me. This game was, what was Metal Gear Solid 2? This was like 2002? 2001. This is interesting. Like, just a quote from the game. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as a nation exists, so will we. Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours in mind? The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us. We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself. But there are things not covered by genetic information: human memories, ideas, culture, history. Genes don't contain any record of human history. It is something that should not. Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left to the mercy of nature? We've always kept records of our lives through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books, but not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the world, the whole, was selected and processed, then passed on, not unlike genes, really. This game, like, broadly refers to, like, meme theory, which I don't think people take very seriously, but interesting to think about nonetheless. But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible. Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretation, slander, all this junk data preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate. It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution. You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship. What we propose to do is not control content, but to create context. The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtaposition of morality around you. Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans. The rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims. Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing: be nice to other people, but beat out the competition. You're special, believe in yourself and you will succeed, but it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed. You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt, the untested truths spun by different interests to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems. Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large. The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but everybody is right. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right. Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth. And this is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper. Good reference to me. We're trying to stop that from happening. It's blah blah blah, and then it's like a creepy AI that's trying to like create like some fucking shit about the world. But I don't know. Yeah, this is from the. You get like really weird. In the end of Metal Gear Solid 2, the system that you're talking about or that you're dealing with is like starting to go corrupt.
Of evolution.
And it
humanely murder other humans.
Yeah, this is part of what we just read.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations.
Dude, Metal Gear Solid 2 gets so much shit, but it was put together. This is another game that's like, it's like meta. Metal Gear Solid 2 is such a mindfuck in so many different ways, and I love it. I love this game for some of the reasons why people hate it. I think that like, when people ask you what's your favorite Metal Gear Solid game, Metal Gear Solid 3 is the correct answer, but the dog whistle to the real big brain people is Yuge, Metal Gear Solid 2. Because only two types of people really like Metal Gear Solid 2. The small brainers that love big twists because they're dumb fucking spoiler babies and blah, 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 or whatever. And then the big brain people that were like, Metal Gear Solid 2 was so good on so many levels, right? Like, in Metal Gear Solid 2, there's like this weird thing where a lot of Metal Gear Solid 2 like strangely resembles Metal Gear Solid 1. Like, you have a lot of similar looking bosses, there's a lot of similar looking characters, the missions are kind of same, and it's weird. And then you find out, oh, Raiden is actually being ran through a thing where he's supposed to be training to be like Solid Snake. And there's a plan inside this game called S3, and what you find out later on is that S3 stands for Solid Snake Simulation. That's what this S3 plan stands for. And you find out that actually this whole game is supposed to just be crafting Raiden within the game. It's supposed to be crafting Raiden into being the next Snake by putting him through like similar situations. Which is kind of meta, right? Like, oh, cool, like his whole life is whatever. But that's actually not what the game is about. And you actually find out that S3 doesn't actually stand for Solid Snake Simulation. That was just fed to one of the in-game characters. What it actually stands for is the selection for societal sanity. And really, the game is like a meta game where it has taken you as a player and it's made you play through Metal Gear Solid 1 again, because that's what you do as a player when you play a video game. You play a video game, you expected to be playing Solid Snake, but you're not. You're playing Raiden, and you're running through a lot of the same scenarios you did in Metal Gear Solid 1, and you're doing it all exactly in the way that you're supposed to, because you're playing a game and that's what you're supposed to do. And the game even like breaks the third wall a lot to like reach out to you and tell you that. There are parts where you get like creepy calls where the guy like tells you to like turn off the console and shit. Like where the AI is like glitching like hardcore.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
And there's like a lot of like There's like a lot of like really weird like a lot of weird like meta things that happen like at this point in the game. But yeah, it's super interesting. I personally still do think that like Metal Gear Solid 3 is like the best Metal Gear Solid game because it's so good and it's so much simpler than Metal Gear Solid 2, and there's like an elegance in that. But Metal Gear Solid 2 is really cool. There's a lot of really cool shit going on within that game. I think there's a lot of really cool shit going on. So many people were mad when they found out that you spent 90% of that game playing a character that wasn't Snake, and that was totally fucking hidden up until the release of the game. Yeah. But you should check out other Deus Ex quotes / vids too. I played through Deus Ex Machina 2 or Human Revolutions or whatever. It was okay. I think I played through 2 and 3. But I mean, like, it was more like
Don't forget, it was the NSF.
I don't know how to like how do I say this without sounding like an asshole. The Metal Gear Solid games, I think, are the only video games that I played that actually had like some really cool, like, deeper stuff going on. Usually when other games try to tangle with like deeper level concepts, it comes off as a little bit what's this? I'm looking for a C word. Not crass, not corny. Camp. Like a little campy maybe, and a little bit, or maybe not even campy actually. No, because campy implies like self-awareness. Like it seems like they take themselves a little bit too seriously, and then you wind up in these like things where it's like, oh, like this is like, I don't need another game for something to tell me like all of society is evil and the government is controlling everything and you have no individuality as a human. And it's like, okay, like I get it. And when I look through, like, I didn't play like Deus Ex 1, but like when I read like a lot of the old Deus Ex 1 dialogue, or I get like clips, it kind of feels that way where it's like, well, in reality, the bad guys are the good guys and you didn't even know about it, right? Or like,
Let's see for the statue in the first place. Unit goes here to put the pieces back together. Ask me, I think the government did it. They want people to think the NSF are terrorists.
Like, it's kind of like stuff like this. Like, okay. I mean, like, this is cool. I think it's because when you were a kid, Destiny, it just seems stupid and cliche to most people when they play it. The concepts are deep, but it isn't done subtly or well. I feel like you have to be a kid to appreciate it. That it's entirely possible. Metal Gear Solid 2 fucking beats you the fuck over the head with these issues. It's not done in a very subtle way at all. And there's a niceness in like subtlety or brevity in the way that you present certain themes. I'd be really curious. Fuck, I wish I someday we'll go back. Oh, the BioShock games are a really good example of games that like beat you over the fucking head with their ideology. And it's like, okay, I get it. Libertarian utopia is number one. Okay, dude, I get it. Like, it's a little bit too like on the nose. Maybe if I went back and I played through like Metal Gear Solid like 1 through 3, maybe I would feel that way. Maybe like, okay, like sure, it's kind of deep, but like it takes itself a little bit too seriously, maybe. But yeah, I don't know.
Forget all the hardcore philosophy and mind fucks. MGS2 is the best game because you can use a katana.
Maybe. Dude, I love some of the meta shit. Oh no, it's not. It's a bandana. I love some of the meta shit in some of these games. In Metal Gear Solid 1, you could get a bandana for infinite ammo.
Come on, time to go. If you run out of ammo, you can have mine.
You got enough?
Absolutely. Infinite ammo.
It's like
Wait up, Snake.
There's so much weird shit in this game. I love it. I love it. Holy fuck. Okay. Perhaps it is not the medium that I should blame for my present disappointment, but rather the limitations of my own voice. I admit I consider this possibility frequently. Perhaps the book isn't even that good. Perhaps there's a bingo card out there already anticipating everything I say in it. Perhaps silence is the only fitting response to the present moment, just as it would have been fitting to put down one's needle and thread when the first industrial looms were installed, and to do anything else to maintain one's dignity as an artisan. Another thing that I thought about this, something that concerns me, is when people bring up certain memes. He talked about like the bingo card earlier today that can be used to discredit everything somebody says. Oh fuck, this article is really interesting. I don't think I agree with some of this, but it's an interesting article. It feels very strange sometimes when I feel like I'm talking to like a collection of talking points rather than somebody that's seriously capable of engaging with the words that I'm saying. The conversation feels very strange. I can think of two recent examples of this. One example was when I was talking to Caleb I wanted to criticize central planning. I don't think a command economy has ever worked well in human history, or at least not better than any free market economy or any market-based, even like a market socialist-based solution, right? And when I asked Caleb about that, he wasn't really capable of understanding what I was asking, but rather his prepared response was to people that said, like, socialism doesn't work. And it seemed like he wasn't actually capable. And that was the one that I remember the most. But there were a couple different times where he seemed very uncomfortable, or not, I wouldn't even say unwilling, but uncomfortably unable to engage with the point that I made. Instead, he knows like what some people say, and he even admits it, right? Like he even would say like, well, I understand that Destiny's not saying this, but I feel like I have an obligation to speak out against what Fox News and CNN and MSNBC says. And it's like, it's not what we're talking about right now, though. It's so weird that you would go that way. I remember that once when Mike, the Central Committee guy, when he brought up, I was going through arguments when I was using argdown, right? I wanted to map out the arguments that we made in the last conversation because I wanted to make sure that I understood all of his arguments and I was countering them properly. When he watched me doing that on stream, he accused me of being an NPC and doing a dialogue tree. And it's super interesting to me that he said that because what do you mean when you say dialogue tree? Like it was when he called that a dialogue tree, it was like he was being a dialogue tree, right? So like what he saw was a literal tree of dialogue, and then he accused me of something to try to dismiss what I was doing, which is kind of what you do when you call someone a dialogue tree, right? There's nothing wrong with mapping out arguments. The reason why you call somebody a dialogue tree is because you criticize them because they're incapable of engaging with an actual idea. So you dismiss it by using some pre-memorized, speech you have or some rote memorization of some fact that may or may not even address what the other person is saying. That's what it means to be like an NPC or to follow a dialogue tree. So for him to accuse me of dialogue treeing him when I was just mapping out arguments was like incredibly strange. I notice the same thing a lot when I go on the, I always complain about this, but when I go on the sex subreddit, there's I hear a lot of advice that gets passed around over and over and over again, that I don't think is true. I just think it's totally not true. There are so many where it almost feels like when I read through some of the subreddits, especially the sex one, I don't browse them much anymore, but it feels like virgins giving sex advice. I guess this would be like the map precedes the territory again. Like a lot of it unironically reads like virgins giving sex advice. And there are so many things that get thrown around that are just totally not true. So for instance, one of the big ones was enthusiasm is the most important part of sex. No, it's not. Not even remotely true. Everybody has got, people that are sexually active have gotten horrible, toothy blowjobs from enthusiastic girls before. They're not good. I would rather a girl with no enthusiasm that perfectly knows how to freaking work a dick than some girl that's really excited that breaks your dick in half because she's riding you or fucking drags her teeth along your shit and you're fucking rubbed raw in 20 seconds. That's not true. Who would ever say that? Nobody would ever say that. But it's one of the most popularly passed around pieces of sex advice ever. Enthusiasm is way more important than technique. No, it's not. Not even close. Porn, this is a little bit more complicated. When people say things like you can never learn anything from porn, I mean, to some extent, pornography could have destructive effects on your idea of how to engage with the opposite sex. I hear stories of guys just face fucking girls out of nowhere on their first account. Probably not good. But there's a ton of cool shit you can learn from watching porn. There's so much cool shit. I've learned shit and tried shit that I've seen in porn that I would have never thought of otherwise. There's a lot of shit that you can learn there. There's probably things outside of the sex community, but it's one of the most obvious ones where when I go into some of the forums and I read, it's this literally reads like virgins giving sex advice. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane to me. The essay was about the recent difficulty this journalist had been having paying his bills. He noticed that his teenage niece, I believe it was, had racked up many millions more views on Instagram of a selfie of her doing a duck face than his own pictures of Pol Pot would ever get. She was an influencer, poised to receive corporate sponsorships for her selfies, not because any human agent ever deemed that they were good or worthy, just as no human agent ever deemed Johnny S. Papa good or worthy, but only because their metrics singled potential for financialization. This is dealing with a lot of the same subject matter as the videos we just watched, right? Is it, or am I totally incorrect in linking these ideas? The idea that things are valuable because we think they're valuable, and it's this self-fulfilling cycle that doesn't actually reference anything real or with any type of underlying pulpo? I don't know how it's pronounced, sorry. One of the things that I think is super interesting too is how even some things, maybe you guys could think of more examples. Even some things that appear to be meta commentary, so like commentaries on society that like take place in a medium, that are a commentary on the medium, even those things end up becoming like part of this like consumerist, industrialized, capitalist, whatever machine. One really good example I can think of recently of this is Poppy, where it, and I could be wrong, but like my initial...
I'm Poppy.
Like my initial understanding of this was that this felt like some kind of critique of like current society, like this sort of like facetious, self-absorbed, selfie-loving, very hollow, stupid, ditzy, whatever kind of person that's just seeking social media attention. And it kind of revealed it using the way the videos are shot, the creepy kind of music or tones in the background, the very odd computer-like way that she spoke, to where like Poppy is almost supposed to be like a reflection of how we engage with the internet. But then but now she makes like music videos and like has like a little TV show thing. I don't know if this ever went anywhere. I watched this last night because I was bored. And now it's just like entertainment. And it's like, and it's super weird that it got like that, like the meta commentary got rolled into the thing that it was critiquing, maybe, unless it's still meta. But I don't know, right? It's like, it's so bizarre. I'm trying to think if there are like other examples of this happening. I'm sure there are, but the commodification of criticism. I like that phrase. It's interesting. They rode the meta commentary to success and then made bank. Yeah. Destiny, I doubt it was ever meant to be that critique you saw it as. You just read way too much into it. Well, I think that the original message was that it was supposed to be a critique, but it was commercial at the start.
She
had like a commercial backer behind her, some guy that was helping her script everything out and everything. So like in a way you're right, but like it's bizarre. It's like it's very hard to understand like when you back up like more. Yeah. Is there inherently anything wrong with doing that? I don't think anything I've talked about so far. I'm not speaking in rights or wrongs right now. It's just more like kind of like an analysis on I guess broadly speaking, like identity or cultural identity, or like, yeah, I don't know. No, we're not like, I'm not talking about like things that are right or wrong, just things that are things. Like, I think Poppy, like, feels like Poppy, like, starts as like kind of like a critique on society a little bit. It has to be, dude. Like, if we go back and read some of these videos, even if it starts out as a commercial endeavor, like, that's definitely what it feels like. I'm Poppy. I like it when people comment on my social media. I really like, or actually, like, in, like, the more commercialized form of her, in the show, like, she even gives you, like, that kind of thing. But now it's rolled into, like, a TV show.
I like famous people.
Well, look, I mean, like it's supposed to be like a reflection, like a commentary on like the type of people that do this. Like, I like famous people. I want a TV show. Cool people, right? But now it's like, now it is like a TV show. So it's like, what happened? It's so weird. Yeah, I don't know. Think about typically rebellious genres of music that became mainstream. Oh, dude, the best example of this is how many times. Fuck, I wish I could remember specific times of like like, I feel like I've seen, like, conferences or shit. Or, like, I've heard this on, like, Amway tapes. Or, like, fucking, like, my parents used to fucking love this song when it would come on the radio and shit. Didn't somebody sue somebody recently? Didn't Bruce Springsteen try to say that some Republican... Did Trump use this at, like, an event or something? I feel like I remember a story where... It might not have been Bruce Springsteen, though. It might have been another group that was like, don't use my songs or whatever. I'm sorry. In case you don't know what this song is about, we can like go through the lyrics for it, right? Born down in a dead man's town, the first kick I took was when I hit the ground. End up like a dog that's been beaten too much till you spent half your life just covering up. I got in a little hometown jam, so they put a rifle in my hand, sent me off to a foreign land to go and kill the yellow man, right? So it's like a dude that was born in like a shitty city, and he gets drafted for, I think it's Vietnam, right? Come back home to the refinery. Hiring man said, son, if it was up to me, right, he can't get a fucking job. Went down to see the VA man. He said, son, don't you understand? He's fucked, right? He had a brother at Khe Sanh fighting off the Viet Cong. They're still there. He's all gone. He had a woman he loved in Saigon. I got a picture of him in her arms now, right? Brother died. Down in the shadow of the penitentiary, out by the gas fires of the refinery. I'm 10 years burning down the road, nowhere to run, ain't got nowhere to go. This is a pretty fucking sad song. It's like a, I don't know if you would say, you wouldn't use the word bittersweet, but like people hear this song now and they play it, and it sounds like an American anthem. It's become like when you hear this, it's like patriotic, right? Like, and it's like, it feels so fucking weird. It's tragic? No, I don't even know if I would say it's tragic. It's like when you say tragic, this might be my English background, but when you say tragic, it usually implies like somebody's doing really well and something tragic happens and then it turns around, right? That's like a tragic hero, somebody that brings about their own downfall, or like a tragic story is usually where things are going okay and something fucks up. It's not even tragic. It's just overall like depressing and dark and gloomy and bitter and just horrible and doomer, right? Like, yeah. People hear this as like a celebration, but that's not what the song is about at all, right? It's like like you're almost like crying out, like fucking born in the USA, like, and it's fucking horrible, right? Like, yeah, like yeah. Wait, hold on. Was this at a Trump rally? Is that? Fuck. I feel like I only read stories about this. I never saw like a video. When political candidates play Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA at their campaign rallies, you can usually assume they've never listened to the lyrics, but Donald Trump's apparent decision to add the 1984 tune to his warm-up music speaks a certain political savvy. He added Born in the USA to his playlist at precisely the same time he's begun repeatedly alluding to the fact that his primary opponent, Ted Cruz, was born in Canada. Trump fans now booing Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. I think the reason they started booing it was because didn't Bruce Springsteen come out and tell Trump not to use his songs, even though he has no control over it? It sounds more pathetic as it really isn't the fault of the character in question. It just sucks for everyone. Yeah, it's just like really like horrible. Oh, Springsteen is being booed at the Trump rally as Glory Days plays, presumably because he opposes Trump. These people are going to hell. Oh, because he's campaigned with Hillary Clinton. And then he called Trump a moron. Oh, it's so weird. Everything is so strange. Cuck Philosophy is a good video about this where counterculture ultimately gets neutered to conform to the status quo. Oh my God. My favorite example of this is, oh my God. The planet is just crazy. Everything about society is so crazy. I've talked about this on stream before, is wings. I won't make you listen to this whole video, but like this video is about, it's a Macklemore song about how his identity was about buying shoes and how consumerism pushes us into buying these products that define who we are. And, we want to be I think one of the lyrics, like, we're trying to be an individual, but we're really part of a movement. And it's like this, and it's this kind of like, it's this discussion on how like shoes make you who you are, even though they're just shoes. Yeah, and like like regardless if you like Macklemore, you think the lyrics are a little corny or on the nose, right? It's like a decent message. This song that criticized consumerism, the NBA bought the rights to this song and they made a remix where they used it for commercials to sell products and they edited out all the anti-consumer messages. It's holy shit. It's so crazy. That's crazy. An alternative version of the song was used for commercials involving the 2013 NBA All-Star Game. It was heavily used in TNT television channels' promotion to the event and at the event itself. The promotional film with Macklemore, wearing the West No. 3 Chris Paul red jersey, is shown in the new video, accompanied by a young choir wearing All-Star t-shirts. Macklemore showed up at the day of the shooting, where he says he was informed that they might rearrange the structure of the song to fit the NBA event. He added that in any licensing deal, they're going to edit anyway. A 4-minute song does not fit into a 30-second movie trailer. Lyrics have to get cut in order for the trailer/ad to make sense with what the company is promoting. Macklemore was criticized for agreeing to this heavily edited new version in which almost all negative references to Nike were edited out or taken out of context, with the resulting video becoming a promotional piece for the NBA. Any attempt to reject the status quo ultimately becomes a status quo because it relies on the culture it seeks to reject. But this is different than counterculture becoming the culture, because this is counterculture being reintegrated into the culture. This isn't the culture becoming the counterculture. It's the counterculture being reassimilated into the culture in a way that all the original meaning like loses or all the original intent is like gone. I don't know. That's like, it's insane. Rage.
I feel the best example of these things we've been exploring bunnies on Twitter, all the memes surrounding Gotchi and the dynamics of the homoeroticism, while at the same time most of those memers likely being vehemently anti-queer in many of their views.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point as well, right? That if we bring up something about gayness that makes people uncomfortable, the way that they make fun of that gayness is to use a meme that's being that's representative of an actual gay porn actor. Like, yeah, it's very, very, very strange as well. Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. So that Gachi thing kind of reminds me of like, could you imagine if you had a friend that was like pretty homophobic and you're kind of homophobic and you're in internet culture and the friend comes over and the friend is like, dude, yo, what's up? And the guy's like, yo, what's up? I'm watching some streamer. And he's like, oh, like, what's that? And you're like, oh, well, like he did something that seems like kind of gay. So when he does that, like the way that we make fun of him is we all like post this picture of this guy that we all love that's like a gay actor or whatever. And he's like, what, are you fucking gay? And he's like, well, no. I mean, like that shit is gross, but like it's just like a funny thing. What do you mean by it's funny? Well, like, cause it's like a gay actor that we have like a picture of and we all like love him and shit. And we like put Gachi and shit. And it's like, yeah. But it's like, but we're making fun of the gays when we do it. Like, what? It's like super weird, right? And like when you're trying to explain, like, listen, hold on, you'll understand. Listen to this song called Gachi, okay? Now listen, okay. But the guys are like, it's like two like gay guys that are, it's like the precursor to like gay sex, and it's like pretty, like it's pretty gay watching it. It's actually pretty gay, but it's like we're using it to make fun of gayness, kind of. And it's like super weird. But the guy's like, but those guys are gay, right? And you're like, yeah, they're gay, and that's actually like gay porn, right? It's like, yeah, it's like the precursor to gay porn, sure. We're not like actually watching the gay porn. It's like, those are real like gay actors. Well, yeah. But like, it's like, yeah, it's like super weird. It's super, super, super weird. Oh, I'm sorry. It reminded me of this 4chan copy pasta. I don't know if you'd call this copy pasta or like a green text or whatever, right? You know, driving with friend, accidentally grab his leg instead of gear stick. We both laugh and I unzip his pants, park the car while fondling his balls. Friend is laughing because he knows it's just a joke. Start sucking his dick in the empty parking lot, almost choke on his dick because I'm laughing so hard. Friend is also laughing his ass off. He starts making train noises while yelling, bro job. He comes and I swallow it all like some stupid F word. Kiss my friend and call him F word while laughing. Gotta love playing pranks on my friends. And it's like... yeah, I don't know, it reminds me of that. Back in my school, I would say that we were like pretty, I wouldn't say homophobic, but like pretty like straight. Like it was an all boys school, but it was like really Catholic, and we kind of like the gay stuff. I don't think Catholics were fully on board with it at that point. But there was like a lot of like weird gay joking that was like kind of weird. So like people like slapping people's asses in the shower. It's like a very gay thing to do to show how not gay you are. And it's fun, and it's just like a really, really weird thing, right? Like the way that we joke about not being gay is by being really gay, and that's like the joke. It's like I mean, like on its face, it's pretty easy to analyze it as homophobic, but like a little bit deeper, and it's like it's just very strange. It's like very weird how everything boys do that everywhere. It's fucking weird. Yeah, sure, yeah. I wish you debated someone like Nim or something. I think Gachi is, if anything, celebrating homosexuality. Maybe. I don't know. The thing is that like, I would be willing to bet that even gay people, you could probably find a decent amount of gay people that might support that idea. But like, what I would argue is that like, I don't think it's good to use somebody's sexuality as a punchline. Because you would, the way that I like to see if it would work or not is like, if we did this to the majority position, would it ever still be funny, right? So like, for instance, like, would you ever make a joke where you're like, you're doing something and you see a girl and somebody's like, ah, dude, you're so fucking straight. Like, okay, well, why the fuck is that funny? Like, no one would ever like, you look at a girl and it's like, are you straight? You're so straight, dude. You're acting so straight. Like, okay. Like, no, like everyone look at you weird, right? But like, if you look down the hallway and like a guy is walking across the hallway or whatever, and a guy like nuts you, he's like, what are you looking at him for, dude? Like, you wanna go suck his dick? Are you fucking gay? Well, now it's like, that's like a thing, right? But like, what's the joke there, right? The joke is that like, LOL, you're gay, right? And that's kind of like what Gachi kind of is, right? Like the Gachi jokes are generally like, holy shit, that's fucking gay. And that's just funny. Like just the fact that it's gay in and of itself is hilarious. It's so fucking funny. Being gay is funny. It's so funny being gay, right? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. People say jokes normalize things. I don't agree with that. The problem is that when you say normalize, like what you're actually doing is the opposite of normalization. Let me explain this for a second, because a lot of people don't understand this. What it means to normalize something is that it's integrated into the culture in a way that it's no longer exceptional, right? So when you say something is normalized, an example would be like when somebody's walking down the hallway and I look at you and I'm like, huh, what up? Are you gay for him or something? And you're like, no, I don't understand what you mean. Like, I'm not gay. Like, that's it. Now it's been normalized because it's like being hetero. Like, it's an identity that isn't used as a punchline because there's nothing funny about it. There's nothing funny about being gay. There's nothing funny about being heterosexual. Well, there is something funny about being gay now, right? Because it's not normalized. Like, being gay is abnormal. That's why we don't have like emotes that like make fun of things when they're straight, but we do when they're kind of gay. That's what Gachi is for. And it's like, it's not normalization at all. It's the opposite of normalization. If anything, it's very othering, right? Because you're still making fun of the fact, like, why is this funny? It's funny because it's gay, right? Which is like, I don't know. I don't feel like that's normalization at all. I feel like it's the opposite of that. Like, if being gay was normalized, Gachi wouldn't be funny, right? Why do you have those emotes then? Or do you just not feel strong about this as much? I don't have like super strong feelings about Gachi. Like, I wouldn't go onto the platform and be like, oh, like, we should remove Gachi. Cause like, I don't know. I would argue at the end of the day that like, I don't really like these jokes as much, but I don't have like a super strong feeling about it. Not in the same way that I feel about like, come on, bruh. Cause I feel like that's like way more harmful. But like, yeah, I don't know.
I bet you kiss girls, loser.
Nice.
Duckers.
To be clear, there's a scale to all of these things as well. So like when I say that like Gachi probably is kind of harmful or is like a bad message or doesn't, I don't mean to say that like if you use Gachi you're fucking homophobic. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've used Gachi before. Like probably even recently I probably said like Gachi or whatever. It's just something that I think is probably not that good. But I don't have like a strong opinion about it. It's not like this is like a horrible evil. Yeah. Destiny, kind of like your N-word, I'm sorry, this was a 200-bit donation. Destiny, kind of like your N-word past tweet. It's funny because it's making fun of it, but why? Because of the N-word punchline. Well, not really. Like, the joke of, like, the N-word past tweet is that white people really want to say the N-word. White people really want to be able to say the N-word.
Destiny, please stop the oppression of dog posters. Bonus meme, butterfly, slightly NSFW.
And, like, that's the joke. Right? It's like even like coupling like a pretty serious issue. Like, okay, well maybe we can pay like reparations. Like, what if we got the N-word pass for paying like reparations? Like, wouldn't that work? Like, would that be okay? Right? Like it's kind of like making fun of that idea that white people like really want to be able to say the N-word. You know? In just half a decade, anime traps and dick girls have done more for the normalization, popularization of feminine boys and trans women within the Western zeitgeist than social justice have accomplished since its inception. That's a really complicated statement. There are parts of that statement that are incredibly false, and there are probably parts of that statement that are incredibly true. Like, I think that using people's sexuality as a punchline is not good, but like, without like the whole anime trap culture and everything, I don't know if people like Sneaky would ever be doing like these types of cosplays that are like, and I know that Sneaky, I don't know actually. I'm not going to say anything about Sneaky's sexuality, but I know that I don't think he's outwardly announced he's like transgender or a trans person or whatever. But like, I think you could make arguments that like having like that type of trans porn becoming like so popular has probably done a decent bit to normalize like trans culture. But in some ways it hasn't. Most anime do not use traps as a punchline. That's 100% false. The way that it's presented popularly, I think, oftentimes does. For instance, this is one of the reasons Zeitgeist, people saying that he has a girlfriend has nothing to do with whether or not he's trans or not. I don't know why people are saying that. Holy shit, guys. Okay. But anyway, what was I saying? I've criticized this before, but like, for instance, like a lot of porn uses like the trap thing as like a shock factor. So, I'm sorry. But what I was talking before, one of the reasons, like this is one of the reasons why I banned the discussion of like, are traps gay? Because that conversation always ends up being incredibly fucking transphobic and incredibly fucking stupid. It ends up being like a lot of cis people talking about a lot of dumb shit that they have no reason to fucking talk about. And it just becomes like a vehicle for like a ton of transphobia. That's why like I ban those conversations. I don't have people that talk about that shit. It's super fucking stupid every time it comes up. Steins Gate has a trap character. I mean, don't know if I'd say a trap character, but like a trans character, probably. Yeah, sure. But I don't think the characterization of that character in Steins Gate is problematic. Like, it seems like pretty genuine, and their transness, I don't think, is ever like used in a major way as a punchline. Is trap an offensive term? I would say so. Destiny, I don't think trap equals trans. Trap isn't trans necessarily. It could be cross-dressing, but it's I've seen it used both ways, like pretty interchangeably. Like yeah, sure, like femboys like being called traps. Yeah, like the femboy stuff could be like a trap. But like I've seen like trans people referred to as traps as well in like those types of pornographic communities. So I don't know, but I don't spend a lot of time. Maybe like hardcore into those communities, they're not. But could you explain maybe what you mean by Gachigasm being a punchline? Like when something cool happens, people type PogChamp. In that sense, PogChamp is not a punchline. So like when people type in PogChamp, like what they're doing is they're saying like, hey, this is cool, PogChamp, right? When people type in Gachi, what they're saying is like, hey, this is gay. LOL, that's funny because it's gay, right? And that's it. Like, that's the joke. The joke is like, it's fucking gay, and that's why it's funny. And like, I feel like that type of characterization of gayness is like probably not good, right? It's like, I would say it's comparable to like oh shit, like somebody's breaking into my house, and everybody types in come on, bruh. Like, why is it funny? Black people breaking into houses. It's funny. And it's like, okay, I don't think that's a good thing, right? Or like, you know, like if somebody says like, hey man, like I'll see you tomorrow, and like we can hang out, and it's like to another guy, and I'm like, hey, Gachigasm, it's funny because it's gay. And it's like, I don't know. Thanks. Maybe an octave for a C. Oh god, can I do this? I'm so bad at fucking drawing. An octave for a C might look like this. Is this correct? Something like that? I don't know. Whatever. Are these called periods? What's it called from like one?